Good evening. Welcome to the Buck Stops here. I'm Vishnu Shoma. On the program this evening, a big day in the relationship between India and the United States. The images that you see on your screen, the first images shot and tweeted by the External Affairs Ministry spokesperson about 5 to 6 minutes back of President Barack Obama meeting and greeting Prime Minister Narendra Modi. The two of them are in the middle of a meeting right now. And in a little while from now, we expect the two leaders to come out, give a joint statement and perhaps even take a question or two. We were told that they'd take 2 questions each. On the show this evening, the Indo-US strategic relationship. Can Obama and Modi take it to an even higher level? Let's go straight across to NDTV's Namrata Brar, who joins us. Namrata, do we have any idea of what the agenda for the meeting is? Or is there a sense that it's going to be a freewheeling meeting between two leaders? This is the third meeting between Obama and Prime Minister Modi this year.
It is important and strategic in the sense that it is the third meeting in 1 year and has marked a pivotal change in the relationship between India and the United States. I can tell with a great deal of certainty about the issues that will come up in this meeting. From the White House's side, we've already heard their press briefing, and they've said that climate change will be top of the agenda along with the US-India business relationship, which has been a focus of Prime Minister Modi's 6-day visit here as well. So climate change is one issue which is particularly close to the Obama administration's heart and something that President Obama wants to keep as a personal legacy. But this is one issue that despite all the romance, despite that personal relationship we have between the two leaders, this issue has been an issue of contention and difference between these two major economies. We've heard Prime Minister Modi saying that India will not succumb to climate change pressures, and he used the term justice, which means that the developed world will have to do more to curb these emissions in the next few years as India grows. From the Indian side, counterterrorism will be extremely important. We heard references, quite direct, I must add, with Prime Minister Modi addressing the audience in Silicon Valley yesterday, where he said that the world needs a definite definition of terrorism. It cannot be good
Namrata,
terrorism.
we'll get into those points in a little while from now. Just 1 or 2 brief questions to you. Is it true that the Prime Minister and President Obama will be taking a few questions in a little while from now? Will there be a joint statement which will be made by the two leaders in a little while from now? And we believe that would be within the next half an hour or so. Is that what you're also hearing?
No, this is not what I'm hearing. I have heard that there will be only a photo opportunity. There will be no questions from any side. The only legitimate news sources who are ready to cover it will be those accompanied by those two leaders. And that is, Indian Doordarshan and ANI will be giving those that feed of brief photo op. Just a 30-second photo op between the two leaders. No joint statement is expected from this meeting. I'm also hearing that later on in the day there will be Prime Minister Modi is not going to be sitting next to Mr. Nawaz Sharif. Yeah,
we'll get to the Nawaz Sharif issue in a little while from now, but that's important what you're saying, because earlier in the day there was a sense that there would be once again a reflection of the bonhomie between the two leaders through a joint statement. There would be some sort of a press interaction. We'll see what exactly happens, but there will be a joint statement in a little while from now. Joining us for their views on what this round of talks between India and the United States is all about, Leela Ponnappa, former Deputy National Security Advisor of India, Sanjay Jha of the Congress, Stephen Cohen, Senior Fellow of the India Project at the Brookings Institute. He'll be joining us from Washington, DC. Shopun Dasgupta, the Senior Journalist, Tarun Vijay of the BJP, and Tanvi Madan, the Director of the India Project at the Brookings Institute. Thank you all very much for joining us. Ambassador Ponnappa, let me come to you first and ask you this. Is there a sense that there is an impetus now on the part of the United States to take this relationship with India to an altogether different level? Because the United States now sees that its interests and its strategic interests are based in the Asia-Pacific region, and therefore it sees India having an absolutely pivotal role. Is that what the US would seek to get out of this meeting?
I think very clearly the United States recognizes that it would be useful and in the mutual interest for India and the United States to work as partners. It's an evolving situation. Even from a year ago, when you had the first Modi-Obama meeting, I think China has demonstrated that it has a certain type of intent in the Asia Pacific, in the South China Sea, in the East China Sea. And I think the countries of the region, not just India and the United States, but Japan, ASEAN, the Northeast Asian countries, all have to determine how they are going to try to coalesce in order to deal with this type of situation. Yeah. And in that, India very clearly plays an important part, and America recognizes it, certainly.
Shwapun Dasgupta, do you also feel that this is really about an American push to take India to a new level as a strategic partner? On the one hand, we both have concerns with China. On the other hand, India has been a lot more careful in the manner in which it deals with China. We aren't used to making too many public statements about China. On the other hand, the United States has been pushing for joint exercises. They've been pushing for exercises. For example, the Malabar naval exercise is happening next month to include Japan. So Japan is going to come. There was a sense that Australia may also be part of that. So as part of the pivot to the Asia Pacific, perhaps the US wants India to be far, far more active, and perhaps there's a sense of reluctance on New Delhi's part to go that far this soon.
Yes, I think that would be a fair assessment, and I think understandably so, partly because I don't think there is any evidence so far to say that the United States is absolutely clear that, at least as far as Afghanistan is concerned, about trying to check anti-India forces which have been operating from there. Its hesitation on, its dual strategy on Iran, for example, something which India opposed in the past, would say that, these are certain seasonal constructs. So there are large numbers of issues on which the United States hasn't fully convinced India that it is a enduring partnership. It's a valuable relationship. Yes, there's no doubt, but there is something which makes India slightly wary of going that extra step to make a viable partnership go to the extent of an alliance. And I don't think in the case of India, we've always been a bit hesitant to go that last mile and keep that element of strategic autonomy. And I think as far as the United States is concerned, at present, India is trying to build capacity, build economic capacity in the region. And the United States is a very useful player in that context. And I think so far as this present visit is concerned, I do not think it would be right to treat it exclusively on a geopolitical level. But I think the main emphasis at present is economic, it is commercial, it is, as I mentioned, India's capacity building exercise.
I take your point, Mr. Dasgupta, but just as far as that strategic relationship is concerned, just in the last, 2 hours or so, that deal for American helicopters, Chinook and Apache helicopters, has been signed. Tanvi Madan, do you believe that this is part of a process where we have seen India dramatically change its choice of partners, in a sense, from who to acquire most of its weaponry? Russia used to be that country. Now America is the leading exporter of arms to India. And at a time when the Prime Minister is in the United States, this announcement has been made. This could easily have been made earlier on, it could have been made later on, but there seems to be a certain symbolism as well attached to these defense deals. Is India trying to send a message to the US?
I think it's not as dramatic as people make it out to be. I think what we've seen in the last year is definitely increased momentum, but the trends have been in this direction for the last 15 years in terms of defense procurement. India has been moving. I mean, if you look at it, India still is very heavily dependent on supplies from Russia. What you've seen now is a sense of actually moving away to try to, at least on the new purchases being made, to diversify, keep India's options open. So you're seeing, looking to others, France, the US, Israel, about the timing in terms of usually defense deals are not announced, so it is a departure at the same time as a visit. India has been hesitant to do that. Having said that, I think it sends a message on a very important fact that Prime Minister Modi can deliver. This is something people have been watching for. Can he deliver on the promises? And this sends a good signal. And not just this, there was another announcement, not quite an official announcement, but news that India would be allowing the US to look for bodies of their soldiers who have been killed in the Northeast. That would go down well on this end.
All right. Ambassador Ponnappa, you had a point to make very briefly before I go across to my other.
Well, it's not just India that's being careful. The United States is also being careful. And despite all the public statements that they make about China, I think they have a very complex and diverse relationship with China at many levels. And I don't think we should ever underestimate that. None of these is mutually exclusive. The point is, how does the entire kaleidoscope fit together? And just a point about the U.S. search for soldiers from World War II for the remains in the Northeast. This has been going on for some years. And this is really the point, that whether it is on this humanitarian aspect or whether it is with regard to supplies, it has been an evolving situation. And the pattern, the trajectory has been evident for several years.
Mr. Tarun Vijay, critics of Mr. Modi would say that, and of the US President would say that they shared a warm personal chemistry, but if you look at the relationship between the two sides, there are still wide differences of opinion. In fact, I'm going to read out a quote from Satu Limai, the director of the East-West Center in Washington, and ask you to reply. Now, Satu Limai writes, in the US-India relationship today, the symbolism is splendid and the bromance between Mr. Modi and Mr. Obama is blooming. But on nuts and bolts, on real issues, there are still wide differences of opinion. Would you agree, sir? For example, environmental issues, the civil liability, nuclear laws in India. These are a couple of issues where there are concerns. Would you say that these are important as well?
I don't agree with that, because the trust level is increasing very magnificently. The presence of India being recognized globally, and the gain, the most magnificent gain, is in the terms of trust that we are getting from everyone in the United States and from other Western countries. I think that is the most important thing. The rest of the nuts and bolts can be taken care of once the trust level is at the right pace and at the right levels. And I don't think, because I was listening to the debate, and I don't think that the India-US relations should be seen through the prism of India-China relations. And neither I agree that US is pushing India to play a greater role or a more significant role in the East. I think India is working very magnificently in the world, and everyone is looking at us since Mr. Modi took over as Prime Minister. And we are having a very different China policy. We have been having our own reserved opinions about Russia also, right from Chechnya to Ukraine. And the eastern side is being taken care of very, very cautiously. So while we are taking care of the eastern side, our relations with the West and other European countries were never so good. The kind of meetings that Mr. Modi is having in the United States has increased the morale of all Indians on a very different planet. And I think what you are speaking about is small differences on climate change and other issues can be very well taken care of. India-US relations were never on this level as they are now.
Sanjay Jha, would you say that as India and the US increase and evolve in their relationship, there are indicators of a relationship with Russia, which has been a traditional ally, changing completely? Russia is now selling military hardware to Pakistan. They've sold attack helicopters to Pakistan, and apparently there are negotiations for fighter aircraft as well. This is something that was unthinkable even 6-7 months back, but it's a process that now seems to be taking place. Is there a certain danger for India in changing its strategic preferences?
No, I think that's a very, very valid question, Vishnu. I noticed that a lot of people here seem to be very bullish about the bromance. But the truth is, where America, when you look at them as in terms of the economic and trade relationship with India, I mean, they like to push their foreign capital into markets where they see an attractive rate of investment or a return on investment. So let's aside. But the critical point that a lot of people forget, and I believe that's critical, is the relationship with Pakistan on terrorism. I think, the two heads of state, when they are meeting right now as we talk, I would assume would be focusing on the Pakistan terrorism issue. Now, a lot of people in India tend to believe, and I have read a lot of articles on that, that end of day United States is, de-escalating out of Afghanistan. But you look at the numbers, since 2002, America has funded Pakistan to $30 billion US, and a lot of it has actually been in arms, equipment and defense preparedness. And a lot of that was meant to fight internal terrorism in Pakistan, but as we all know has been diverted towards India and towards the Kashmir border. Now these are realities. I don't think America is ever in the foreseeable future is not going to be not supporting or aiding Pakistan in terms of huge financial funding for arms, because they believe Pakistan is the source to managing the Afghanistan region. And secondly, as we all know, that they are paranoid of non-state actors acquiring the nuclear arsenal in Pakistan. So India has a very, what I call as we are skating on thin ice, because while America will definitely look at India as a big market, FDI and so on and so forth. But the second point, as far as Pakistan as a strategic ally for US is concerned, I think that will stand for a considerable period. Therefore, Hafiz Saeed walks free with a 10 million US bounty.
Tarun Vijay, would you like to respond to that?
While 1 billion plus people are happy, only the de-Indianized colonial mindset can be mourning and finding some faults. Why should we care about what America is funding, how America is funding Pakistan? Till we have a best relations and a trust level with United States. Pakistan is less than a country today, and it's more like a satellite platform serving and nursing the interests of two superpowers like China and America. We can handle Pakistan. Why should Indian Prime Minister be talking about Pakistan in the United States? It's not more than a dot on our radar. Our radar has the development of India, but getting more digital and manufacturing help from the Western countries, and make in India campaign a success. And that's where we are heading for. The entire globe is turning to India. Every person who is anyone in the world is turning to India, shaking hands with the Indian
Sanjay
Prime Minister.
Disagrees, but before I go,
and that should be celebrated. That should be celebrated.
Before I go back to Sanjay,
Sanjay is cast in a different mode. He's always mourning when India is shining.
Vishnu, Vishnu, what I'm talking about is pragmatic reality of hard, real politics. I mean, if Mr. Tarun Vijay is the BJP representative, and if he wants to live in self-denial, he's free to do so. But this is about national security, and I think you should hear the opposition viewpoint of not just the Congress, but any other political party. I think it's being highly naive and immature to treat this as is political bickering.
All right, I want to go back to Shopun Dasgupta. Mr. Dasgupta, we spoke about Pakistan in a different context, but let's speak about Pakistan in terms of Nawaz Sharif being present. The two leaders are at the Waldorf Astoria Hotel. They're both staying over there. They're both going to be sitting next to each other in certain United Nations meetings today. And the question is the question which so many people want to know. I mean, is there any opportunity, or should there be any opportunity for the two leaders to meet? Do you believe Mr. Modi may act spontaneously and sort of break through the roadblocks which we've seen post-UFA?
Well, I don't know. I can't speak on that. I mean, you can act spontaneously. You can embrace Mr. Sharif. You can drop into his suite. But I mean, I don't think that itself is going to alter the situation. And the situation really is that in Pakistan, there is an almighty existential dilemma which the state is confronting as to which direction it wants to go in. And despite Mr. Sharif's best intentions or worst intentions, it is cascade. The whole issue of what is happening in Pakistan is evolving in its own way. So, Mr. Modi can, for the sake of courtesy, shake hands with him and next to it, and give a lot of copy to rather inquisitive media people. But beyond that, the differences are a bit too fundamental. I personally believe that regardless of whatever symbolic gesture may or may not happen in New York, whether inside the Waldorf Astoria or outside, the basic differences between India and Pakistan are so intense that I don't think that in India we are in any mood to emulate earlier policies and walk that extra mile trying to accommodate Pakistan, because I don't think it is going to be very rewarding.
All right, Professor Stephen Cohen, the Senior Fellow at the India Project of the Brookings Institute, joins us now. Professor Cohen, thanks very much for being with us. It's the third meeting between Barack Obama and Narendra Modi. Where do you see this engagement going now? Do you believe that something new, something different, something fundamental might emerge? Or is this a par for course meeting?
I really don't think there's going to be anything new, except that they will discuss the apparent progress that's been made in some areas of the dialogue, including defense relations. But I think until India begins to move economically, and until it becomes more serious about its dialogue with its neighbors, including Pakistan, there's not going to be a fundamental change in American policy. We're very happy to see what India is doing in terms of its economy. But again, India is afflicted with the same problem that we have here, that there seems to be no bipartisan or multilateral, no party agreement on what policies to pursue. We're deadlocked here, and Obama's facing a split in the Republican Party as well as his own party. And I think Modi faces the same kind of problem at home. He has an economic strategy which promises a better future, but he can't implement it.
Professor Cohen, what would the United States like to see India doing as far as Pakistan is concerned? We are in a deadlock situation as far as Pakistan is concerned. We believe that we've been betrayed by Pakistan for all sorts of reasons post the UFA process. And at the same time, India has its concerns on where the United States stands as far as good terror and bad terror is concerned. We believe there needs to be a fundamental definition of terrorism, and we expect the United States to have a bigger role in telling Pakistan that what it's doing is wrong, and somehow that's not been accepted.
I served in the Reagan administration, and Reagan gave a speech on terrorism where he joked that one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter. Then he went on to argue that that wasn't true. So I think that trying to define terrorism is a silly and fruitless activity. And in fact, Nixon went to China. Reagan talked to Gorbachev in Reykjavik while I was working for him, and it said you have to talk to the Pakistanis. The Pakistani people as a whole are really changed their attitude towards India. It's the Pakistan military that's a problem. So here there's an area where the United States and India and China, in fact, have a common interest in moderating or containing Pakistan. Unless Modi is willing to talk to the you don't talk to your friends, you talk to your enemies. And unless Modi's willing to talk to Pakistan and go around the military if necessary, talk to the Pakistani people, nothing much is going to happen. In fact, I think the rest of the world, I can't speak for the U.S. government, at least most of us are getting kind of bored with the whole relationship. I've just wrote a book saying this is going to go on for another 35 years. In fact, what it does, it hurts India more than it hurts Pakistan. Pakistan is in deep trouble. We all know that. But this is dragging India down unless it can normalize with all of its neighbors.
Is India not being pragmatic enough? Do you believe, Professor Cohen, that India is not being pragmatic enough in its Pakistan policy?
Could you say again, please?
Do you believe India is not being pragmatic enough in its Pakistan policy?
Well, I don't know if it has a Pakistan policy except to make faces at Pakistan, which is what he seems to be doing here. That's not a policy, that's an emotion, and really has to have a strategy to deal with Pakistan. I think that the Pakistani people, most of them, really would like to normalize with India. They've got their own problems and their own difficulties now in the tribal areas, and this is an opportunity for India to in a sense, straighten up in some issues. Kashmir is an issue which won't be resolved for many years, but clearly you can put it aside, as most Pakistani officials would like to see. But if Modi's support rests on anti-Pakistan sentiment, then we're going to see another 4 years or maybe 8 years of nothing happening.